Welcome to episode number 40 of the First Responder Wellness Podcast. My name is Conrad Weaver, and I'm so grateful you joined us. I can't believe it's 40 episodes. So excited to launch this one today. Just a quick reminder that you can still save 10% on the PTSD 911 film and toolkit this month in the month of May. So there's only a few days left. So if you haven't purchased it or ordered the film and toolkit for your agency and you want to save a little bit, now's the time to do it. Visit ptsd911movie.com/toolkit. That's ptsd911movie, all one word, .com/toolkit. Order it today and start training your folks about mental health and wellness tomorrow and start those conversations that are so important and so vital to have for your agency, for your people. The film has really been a powerful tool to help organizations and agencies to jumpstart that conversation in mental health and wellness. So as we wrap up our month of May and in talking about wellness and mental health, I think you should start by getting this film and toolkit to make it, because I believe that wellness is not optional. Yes, that's my motto. Wellness is not optional. All of us need to be healthy and well. And you can start by bringing together your people and to teach them about wellness by using the toolkit and the film. So order it today. Thanks so much. Hey, I want to ask you this. What are you eating? Nah, I'm not trying to throw shade on you for eating that donut recently. In fact, full disclosure, I had a cinnamon roll this morning. So there's that. But have you ever really stopped to consider what you put into your mouth and how that impacts your brain? Well, it impacts all of you. It's been said that we are what we eat. And in these days of, all kinds of fast food and junk food that permeates every part of our society, it's evident that we're not all eating well. Well, today my guest is Megan Lautz. She is a registered dietitian and a personal trainer on a mission to help first responders optimize performance, recover faster, and enjoy a long, healthy retirement. In this episode, we dive into all things nutrition, what you should eat, fad diets, and all the things that you've probably heard about, but have maybe been ignoring. So come along for this inspiring conversation, and maybe you'll be inspired to start eating a little better. Hey, if you're enjoying this podcast and think others would too, be sure to hit the subscribe button and share it with your friends, family, and your coworkers. Our mission is to bring you content that inspires you to develop a culture of wellness, not only for yourself and your family, but for your people that you work with, your agency, and your community, so that you can thrive and have a successful and meaningful life. Because, like I said before, I believe wellness is not optional for all of us. So whether you watch on YouTube or listen on your favorite audio app, please subscribe, and I'll be ever grateful. Thanks again for listening and watching. And now here's my conversation with Megan Lautz. Well, Megan, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Welcome to the First Responder Wellness Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Or what's your connection to first responders?
Sure. So I'm a civilian dietitian who specializes in first responders, specifically fire and police, dabble in dispatch and corrections, of course. And I luckily just kind of fell into a job with Montgomery County Fire and Rescue initially, and now Fairfax County Fire and Police as a civilian, and just kind of took off with it when I found out that really there is no really good specific nutrition information out there for first responders.
Boy, that's such an important subject, and I'm so glad to have you on the program because we've talked a lot about a lot of different things on this show over the past couple of months, but we have not talked about nutrition. Mm-hmm. And it's such an important part of all of our wellness. How in the world did you get connected in the first responder world, kind of working with first responders?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people think I married into it, but I married an IT guy, so he's kind of useless, unless my printer jams or something. But I actually initially started my career in corporate wellness. I was working at Northrop Grumman. They laid off their whole wellness program, and I fell into this job as a wellness manager at an Health clinic with Montgomery County. And fire and police just seem to we just seem to get along the best. I had an interest in performance nutrition. There's also that corporate wellness side of general health and heart health and cancer prevention, all of that kind of stuff. So it just kind of ended up being a really good fit. And then eventually Fairfax stole me across the river and now I'm with them. So I just got lucky.
Yeah. So this is a subject that I think is not addressed in a lot of agencies around the country. I mean, I remember being someplace this past summer, and I don't want to throw any shade on anyone, but there were some firefighters that were like, how do you work? Because you're several, you're quite a bit overweight.
Sure.
And so two questions. One, how does that happen? How does someone that's fit and they get into this line of work, now they find themselves 50 pounds overweight? And then how can you mitigate that?
Yeah, I actually love that question because I think there's this general expectation of first responders, not only for first responders internally, but also externally, that you guys are expected to perform at 100%, if not higher, perfectly at every single call, every single shift, every single day, right?
Yeah.
But the challenge is you guys have more challenges than the general population when it comes to wellness, right? Like that 9-to-5er who's trying to just get a little bit healthier, like the gap seems huge for them, but for y'all, you're also dealing with lack of sleep, high stress, exposure to trauma. And those are huge things because no one wants to eat a salad when, they just ran a pediatric code.
Yeah.
No one wants that.
Yeah.
So, and this stuff builds over the course of a 20, 25, 30-year career, right? So that gap for first responders is significantly bigger to breach, right? And a lot of times people don't just gain 50 pounds overnight. It's pretty rare. It happens over the course of that career. I think people want it to be like, oh, well, you just know you're supposed to be fit. And that's going to be your motivation. But really what happens is I think people just get beat down by the mental and physical aspects of the job. And then there's no way to build them back up incrementally. So a lot of times it's like this super fit firefighter or super fit health professional who's just like asking them to get to a second story window without a ladder. Like just go vegan.
Yeah.
Right? Just intermittent fast, eat one meal a day, cut out all sugar and sodium. And the problem with that is there's no context for how to do that in the job or how to adjust that when certain circumstances come up in the job, higher intensity scenarios, fire related scenarios, lack of sleep, and all those things.
Yeah. Then you put in, like, I know I've been to a lot of firehouses around the country. They eat really well and sometimes not the most healthy food.
Sure.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that if you have a whole crew that you work with and they're cooking up, fried chicken or whatever every other night? How do you deal with that? And what do you do then to hey guys, I need to eat a salad tonight, or I need to eat, something else.
Sure.
Yeah. How do you deal with that pressure?
I think the softest approach is what can you add? So if you are genuinely trying to eat healthier, usually there's probably someone else on your shift who would sort of be on board with that. So it's, if they're doing always the protein is the main focus, right? Like that's protein and a carb, like y'all will get the brats and tots, like you got it. But can you bring a veggie? Can you add a veggie? Can you contribute that? Of course, there's that financial burden on your end of doing it and prepping it and stuff like that. But sometimes thinking about what you can add to the meal is a little bit easier than trying to force everybody to cut it out. Right.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that I've seen, it's not just the dinners that are the challenge. It's also what's on the counters. The community dropping off the cakes and the cookies. And of course, maybe sometimes you guys pick it up with your station budgets from Costco or Sam's and get the cookie tray that's really for 50 people and it goes down for 8. It's Dr. Jill Joyce is a dietitian out of OSU, and she did a really interesting study where she donated a bunch of healthier options, fruits, veggies, clementines, bananas, granola bars. And basically the rule was to receive the donation, you had to only keep her food on the counter and all the crap in the cabinets, not throw it away, in a hidden pantry, hidden cabinet, out of sight, out of mind. And what she found was firefighters ate an additional pound of produce per shift, when the healthier options were on the counter, and the, crap was hidden. So there are some really small changes you can make to your environment through addition, or just through out of sight, out of mind, where it's a little less harsh than like everybody's going to go vegan now because I'm vegan and that's what I want everybody to do kind of thing.
A couple of years ago, I was out in Pinole, California, visiting with Chief Neil Gang, the police department there. And, he's put together this whole wellness initiative. He said, we want to have a wellness culture. And one of the things he did was to put in vending machines in the break room that have healthy options.
Yes.
Not just all the sugary stuff, but actually good things for you, something good for you. And I thought that was brilliant because you're coming in, you're wanting, instead of a Coke, well, there's some kind of healthier drink in the machine that you can get instead of all that sugar that comes into Coca-Cola. I thought something like that was a much better step than other things that people do and other options that people have. So, that's kind of a drastic move. But do you think more and more? Are you seeing any of that in the work that you do?
Sometimes the vending machines are kind of tricky, but things like canteens or for me, honestly, it's kind of just providing that information, whether it's through social media. Or I do a lot of food demos. So I think the way to kind of reduce some of those barriers is actually trying some of those healthier foods. So, and also food bribery works really well at getting a dietitian into a fire station or police station. So, I think the vending machines is a great option, but you always have to fight with people on cost and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think it's a lot of that kind of education, letting people try things, having the budget to allow people to try things, but also giving things that are realistic. So a lot of my stuff is healthier, like buffalo chicken wraps, a Reese's smoothie, Cajun chicken pasta. Like this stuff doesn't sound like dietitian food. It's not kale and quinoa, right? So it kind of reduces that barrier of, all healthy food is only kale and quinoa. It's, healthy-ish is what I like to call it.
Yeah. So can you speak to what does junk food do to my brain?
Yeah. So here's the thing. It depends on what you call junk food, because quite frankly, like most of the dietitians in the fire and rescue space are also super flexible. Like we want to have junk food, right? Like I am the type of dietitian who's going to have ice cream pretty much every night, and you can pry that from my cold dead hands. So it comes down to you as a person. Are you the type of person where if ice cream's in the house, you're going to eat the whole gallon and go on a bender? Or are you the type of person who can kind of pick at it and it helps add variety into your life? And you don't overdo it. So junk food, it comes down to how frequently are you doing it? Is it a quarter of a donut, which ends up being 6 donuts by the end of your shift? Or is it a scoop of ice cream after dinner? The scoop of ice cream after dinner is not the end of the world, especially if you're a busier firefighter or police officer where you're getting 10, 15, 20,000 steps without even working out that day, right? Because of call load. So yes, junk food can impact your brain, the higher sugar, the fried foods, that kind of stuff. But I also want to make sure that first responders understand that it's okay to have some of that in your diet. We all have what's called discretionary calories. Usually it's, if you wanted a number, about 200-300 calories per 2,000 calories to add enjoyment like barbecue sauce and creamer and stuff into your diet. So, but I'm also not saying that should be the only thing in your diet, right? There's gray area, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Last summer I took a coast to coast bicycle ride. I rode from Oregon all the way to Ocean City, Maryland. Jeez. And on that ride, we were riding about 61 miles a day.
Yeah.
On average. And me and my buddy, we could literally eat anything we wanted and as much as we wanted, because the next day we were going to ride 70 miles and burn it all off, So I've become much more aware of the calorie intake versus the calorie spend.
When you are burning significant amounts of calories, whether through an endurance event or if you're a firefighter or specifically firefighter recruits, right? Because that fire rotation where they're in gear all day and doing evolutions and stuff like that, you're looking 4,000 to 6,000 calories, right? And people can't get that amount of calories in when they have limited breaks. And you can't get that amount of calories in when you're riding 70 miles a day. Yeah. So what we have to do is liberalize the diet. And what that means is we add sugar and we add crap in to get the calories, because if you don't get the calories, you won't be able to perform as optimally as you need to. Plus sugar and sodium, which we want to cut in our day-to-day diets, right? Are performance enhancing on the fire ground, or performance enhancing in endurance events. And that's where I'm like, this is why I don't recommend cutting out all sugar, cutting out all sodium, because it comes down to context. When do you use it? It's performance enhancing in high intensity scenarios. But if you're just eating it sitting around the day room watching football, it may be detrimental to your health long term.
Do you ever work with any folks in the 911 communications field? Because they often have challenges with this historically. Yeah. And we've seen a lot of 911, folks that have struggled with weight gain because they're sitting a lot. Yes. What are some options for them that would create a healthier environment, a healthier lifestyle for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually have an interesting story. So I was doing some speed coaching when I was with Montgomery County with our dispatchers, because they only have these 15-minute breaks. So we've got to just figure this out. And I had a woman who was maybe 5 foot on the shorter end, gain 50 pounds in the first 3 months of being a dispatcher.
Wow.
50.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, what are you eating? And she's like, well, I kind of, only have one meal a day. It's like maybe chicken and veggies when I get home from shift. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not it. That's not what's doing it. So what are you drinking? Well, she starts the day with like a McDonald's frap or like one of those, large coffee drink things. And she usually does 2 of those at some point during the day, 2 Cokes and then 2 Izzies, which are like a juice. They have calories. Okay. She was getting about 1,700 calories from beverages alone.
Wow.
And when you're on the shorter end and you sit all day, you don't work out, like that's her maintenance calories, quite frankly. So she was gaining weight. Anything she ate was going to make her gain significant amount of weight. So what I see a lot with dispatch, or really fire and police in general, they're almost kind of like hummingbirds. Like they're surviving off of sugar and caffeine because it kind of perks you up. It wakes you up. And it like if you're miserable the whole shift too, like, just wait, takes the edge off, right? Biggest thing there is having alternatives. And what some health conscious individuals get really uncomfortable with is, I'm fine with artificial sweeteners, diet sodas, diet drinks, that kind of stuff. Now, the firefighters in California have an absolute conniption when I mention that. But we actually see significant weight loss, improvements in general health when people switch from those sugar-sweetened beverages to diet alternatives. Well, what about the cancer? What about the GI issues, that kind of thing? Did you ever see like the World Health Organization last year came out with aspartame as cancer causing? Did you see that headline?
I didn't. No, I did not.
Yeah. So it was a big headline in the health community where the World Health Organization in 2023 classified aspartame as a cancer causing agent. If you dug into IARC's classifications, you would find that aspartame is a class 2B carcinogen, which means that there is limited, if not enough evidence in humans and in animals that aspartame causes cancer in the dose that is recommended by the FDA. So that it really doesn't, we don't have enough evidence to really make a strong statement that aspartame causes cancer. And the FDA amount is 15 Diet Cokes a day, the equivalent.
I hope no one's drinking that many.
There's somebody on your shift, at your station. There is always one guy or girl who just downs Diet Coke like it's no one's business. But the reason I say that is a lot of times with the artificial sweeteners, people get super worked up about it. But at the end of the day, it's creating an alternative that can lead to weight loss and better health outcomes. And most people are still not getting the dose that's even close to the dose that makes the poison, if that makes sense. So that was a little bit of a tangent, but that is one place that you can make a big alternative, especially when you're in a sedentary position.
Yeah. So what about my favorite drink, and that is water flavored with coffee?
Perfect. Yeah. Are we talking about caffeine or coffee?
Caffeine.
Yeah, let's go with it. I would be a really dumb dietitian for first responders if I said, just cut out all caffeine, right? Like,
right.
Which the FDA doesn't.
Have you been up all night with us?
Yeah, exactly. Like the dietitian who sleeps in her bed at night, like, screw you, lady. Right. But the FDA recommendation is under 400 milligrams of caffeine per day for a healthy individual. So like, why would I, it can be performance enhancing. It can help with mental alertness. It can help with physical performance. So there's really no reason, unless there's a medical reason, to cut out caffeine. And those are usually like cardiac issues, high blood pressure, acid reflux, GERD, which a lot of people have in the fire. GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, basically. And a lot of people in the fire service have that. And they wake up first thing in the morning, they drink the coffee, and they're like, no food. And they wonder why their chest is burning. It's like, you just drank acid. So
I've heard that you should maybe wait 45 minutes in the morning before you have a first cup of coffee. Is that something that's accurate?
I really should look into that a little bit further. I know Huberman recommends it, which some of his recommendations can be hit or miss. So I don't know that for specifically, but the biggest thing when it comes to timing of caffeine, at least on my end, is going to be making sure there's a 4 to 5 hour buffer from your last caffeinated beverage in your bedtime, which a lot of first responders are like, well, I can have a cup of coffee at dinner and I won't have any problem falling asleep. And you're not going to have trouble falling asleep. You're going to have trouble staying asleep or have trouble with your sleep cycle. So you spend less time in rapid eye movement sleep, less time in deep sleep. You wake up the next day reaching for more caffeine because you feel like garbage, right? A lot of times when I've had people up, 1,200, 1,600, 2,000 milligrams of caffeine per day. When you start getting to those doses, you're doing multiple energy drinks, multiple pre-workout supplements per day, and it's later in the evening, it's screwing up your sleep. So when I even cut their caffeine in half, like I don't even get them to the recommendation, their sleep improves, they feel better, their energy's better, and they think I did witchcraft. So it works.
And then they love you, right?
Right. It's all about little negotiations is what I do.
So what about our favorite drug, alcohol?
Alcohol is another good one. So the other thing that we've seen with first responders, obviously when they're off shift, is, the caffeine comes too late in the day. They're trying to work the side job. They're taking care of the kids. They still need the caffeine to survive. And then they try to do a nightcap to take get them to relax. Well, that screws up your sleep even further. You want at least a 3-hour buffer from your last caffeinated beverage. And if you put the kids to bed, most of the time you're not doing a 3-hour buffer, right?
I mean, alcohol beverage.
Yeah, specifically alcohol. Yeah. So, and a lot of people, if they have the Whoop or the Aura rings or those other trackers, especially once you get over the age of 30, because everything goes downhill at that point, you're going to start noticing your sleep cycles, and your sleep is going to be much worse. You know what I mean? You're going to spend less time in deep sleep, less time rapid eye movement sleep, more tossing and turning. So alcohol has a big effect on your sleep. And why am I like nagging on the sleep front? You guys already struggle enough with the sleep, right? And with that, it also impacts appetite. So we see a 24% increase in overall hunger due to an 18% increase in leptin, the hunger suppressing hormone, and a 28% increase in ghrelin, the hunger stimulating hormone. So when you have things like alcohol and caffeine impacting your sleep, and then you're wondering why you're craving the sugar, the sodium, the high fat, the crappy foods the next day, that sleep is a big factor. And while we can't control the call load when you're on shift, we can control the food and what you're taking in. Alcohol is also a huge concern from a bazillion different angles. Your brain, your heart, cancer. Like if there's any food, because people ask me all the time, well, what foods should I never ever eat? And really the only thing is alcohol. And this is coming from someone who really likes alcohol. I'm not, I like wine. I like mixed drinks. You know what I mean? Like the bougie stuff. I'm not, this is not coming from someone who does not indulge in alcohol by any means. It's just when we look at the evidence from a cancer standpoint, alcohol is a type 1 carcinogen known to cause cancer in humans and in animals. And they're even saying this at any dose.
Wow.
It's not like,
So where's the whole thing about, a glass of red wine in the evening is good for your heart?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So from my understanding with those studies is they were doing those studies. They weren't comparing the two groups that they were comparing were people who didn't drink alcohol and people who drank alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they were comparing it to like former drinkers who quit drinking, not like Mormons or like never drinkers. They were comparing it to people who already had damage from alcohol. So the people who had the glass of wine looked healthier because they didn't have the pre-existing damage. And also, we have to think about the glass of wine. The serving of a glass of wine, have you ever measured out 5 ounces of wine?
I have not exactly, no.
It's devastating. Devastating. So like one serving of wine is 5 ounces. In your standard fancy bougie cup, cute cup, it's like barely like
it's
an
like
inch or
just
two.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, this little bit. Like when I pour a glass of wine, and I don't even have that big of glasses, it's pretty much like a half a bottle of wine. It's like as much that will fit. Like there's an inch over the top so I don't spill it too much.
That's why I love going to the Carriage House here in Emmitsburg. They're really generous with their pours.
Yeah. And if you come over to my house, I'm also very generous with my pours. So that's the other problem is a lot of people just overlook what the actual serving size for alcohol is. My husband's a great example of this. When he pours Deep Eddies into his Sprite, which is his thing, his pour is 3 shots. Like it's dark pink, So it's people just don't measure their alcohol. And then next thing you know, from a calorie standpoint, from a cancer prevention standpoint, heart disease standpoint, they're actually technically heavy drinkers, but they don't feel like they drank that much because they weren't hammered. Yeah. Right. So
their system is adjusted to all that alcohol. And because I know that if I go, like we went the month of January, we weren't trying to file some fad. We were just like, let's just cut out alcohol in January. So we did. And I noticed that if I have another glass of wine at the end of that, it affects me a little more. Because my body's now not quite as used to having that. Yeah.
Yeah. You're a cheaper date. That's the way to do it. Yeah. The other thing is fertility as well. So a lot of first responders don't realize this, but in general, firefighters have a higher risk for infertility, both female and male. And there's some more recent studies that actually are coming out that if you do have fertility issues or you are trying, that you should cut out alcohol specifically for males to increase motility and improve the shape of the sperm for, I think, up to 3 months prior to.
Wow.
So it impacts fertility. There's so many things that alcohol can impact in your health that if there was anything to cut back on, it would be that. But I also don't want to say that's not super hard because then you have to come up with coping mechanisms for the times that you would usually be reaching for that alcohol.
Right. And if that is the thing that you reach for when you're stressed, then maybe there's some other things you need to do, like see a therapist or something to figure that out.
Yep, absolutely. And then still having an alternative. So like one thing we're doing in Fairfax for Mental Health Month is May. And we're going to do a mocktail class, which I'm a little nervous about because it's a little kind of girly for like my male fire and police officers. But like just having some alternatives that don't suck. Like who wants to just drink water when you're on a boat?
Sure.
No one.
Yeah.
What's something that we could, maybe work in with the mixed drinks or, as an alternative that would rehydrate you or something with like tart cherry juice that could potentially help with sleep. So just, different things that could help with that.
There's a whole cruise line that has a ship that now is alcohol free.
Yeah.
They serve the mocktails just because they know there's more and more people choosing not to drink. Yeah. And they want to serve those folks and not put them in an environment where there's alcohol everywhere.
Absolutely. I mean, there's the whole sober curious movement where people are just kind of dabbling in it, trying a month off, that kind of thing. And I've worked with a couple firefighters who've tried the month off, whether it's in January or some other time. Maybe they fail the first month or two, but then they're like, okay, when I finally did it, I found one, I was relying on it a little more than I thought to take the edge off. And I figured out other coping mechanisms. I went on a walk. I did some yoga. I did some breathing. I talked to my spouse. They found other ways to take that edge off instead of just relying on the alcohol. And just so you know, like for context, what's considered heavy versus light drinking, 7 drinks per week for women, 14 drinks per week for men. Anything over that, you're falling into that heavy drinker category. And like I said, if you're not measuring, this stuff adds up fast.
Right. So how important and how good are these green drinks that are kind of popular right now?
Like the veggie,
like
the powders.
AG1, things like the powders, things like that.
They're not as great as ever. Listen, I mean, if I
you can speak freely because I've tried AG1 and I've talked to my doctor about it, and she's like, no. Yeah.
If I could just get their marketing on my services, like, because they are just toeing the line of the FTC claims and stuff like that, Right. So the challenges with the greens powders is, number one, they're expensive. I think AG1's what, like $100?
It's like $100. Yeah.
So $100 a month. And a lot of people are doing these because they're either A, they're not like veggie people, or B, they're on the go. So it's just hard to get the veggies. So they're like, okay, well, let me pay for this product so it counts as 17 vegetables a day. And that's not really what it is. It actually is more of like a multivitamin or a vitamin mineral supplement, but you can get one from Walmart, like the Men's Health one, for like $7.
Yeah.
And it'll last you 2 months.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, it'll have this whole list of all these different fruits and vegetables. And like sometimes there's like this adaptogen blend with the mushrooms and stuff, but like none of them are in the therapeutic dose. So like there might be like a gram of this type of mushroom, but you need 4 grams of that type of, I'm just making things up, but like 4 grams of that type of mushroom to actually see the stress reducing effects, right? So they're just throwing things in there.
For marketing, basically.
Yeah, for marketing, so they can say that it does this, this, and this. Now, I've had people tell me anecdotally it helps with, like, if they're constipated, they go, more frequently. It helps with that. That's fine if that works for you. But the other thing is, if you're spending $100 a month on this powder, you could be spending $100 a month on pre-cut veggies. Or that's 10 of those little meal prep things. Like if you've seen Factor or Mighty Meals or Territory, the meal prep companies, those are usually about $10 for a whole meal. While that's not a whole month, that's a week of, I'm doing a bunch of overtime. I'm super busy. Let me just outsource my lunch for that week.
Sure. And as I know, according to my doctor, and she's a pretty smart lady, she said what these drink things do, the powders, they're already kind of pre-digested. So your digestive system isn't working the way it needs to really absorb those minerals that are, and those ingredients that where a raw vegetable would have. And so it's not quite as good for you as, the real deal.
Right. Well, and in an extract doesn't mean that it has all of the antioxidant profile. Doesn't mean it has all the vitamin and mineral profile of, say, an apple, right? So, any of those types of products, it's very rare that I'll recommend them. I'll recommend like a meal prep service before anything else, just because it gives you time back. And that's one of the biggest things for first responders is, can I get some of my time, my energy back? So
how important is gut health?
Yeah, I mean, gut health is super important, especially if you're stuck on a medic unit and you're going too frequently, right? But I think like when it comes to gut health, like I think people over supplement, if that makes sense. Like they're very quick to buy a supplement. They're very quick to jump on some sort of
like a probiotic. Is that what? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not saying probiotics don't have a place, like especially, if you just did a round of antibiotics or something like that, like there might be certainly a case for that. But really it comes down to, you get that through food. If I figure out a way to get more fruits and vegetables into your diet, you're going to get more pre and probiotics that are going to be better for gut health. Other things that impact gut: stress, sleep. First responders, they're not addressing that first.
Sure.
Right? They're seeing like, what is the quick fix? What is X podcaster recommending for my gut health right now that's going to cure everything? When we really kind of need to look at the context of that whole person's wellness and figure out the biggest gap there and see if that's impacting it. Because of course, stress is a huge factor with that, sleep, and then a diet quality overall.
Yeah. So what's something that I should put in my diet if I'm not doing so?
The biggest gap for first responders is going to be fruits and vegetables. Biggest gap. And, the other side of that too is the way to quantify that is fiber. So if you're the type of person who likes to log their food, MyFitnessPal or something like that, it will tell you how much fiber you're getting per day. And the recommendation from the American Heart Association is 25 grams per day for women and 35 to 38 grams per day for men. I'm seeing food logs of 5 to 10 grams of fiber a day. This is why I'm saying first responders tend to be deficient in fiber, because the first thing that goes out the window when you're tired and cranky is fruits and vegetables.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, like you're not going to Chick-fil-A and getting a salad when your lunch has been delayed for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Okay? Not even meat.
Yeah.
So getting the fruits and veggies or the whole grains in will help boost that fiber, which then impacts the gut. It impacts hunger levels. It keeps people fuller longer. It can reduce your cancer and heart disease risks. So fiber is huge in the diet. And sometimes people, firefighters, police officers, they like quantification. So there's a way for them to have a number behind that. You know, I reached my fiber today by getting 2 fruits and a veggie or something, whatever.
And so what are the best things for a quick fiber hit, you know, as far as vegetables and as far as fruit?
Yeah, so usually the knee-jerk reaction is actually like, let's just shotgun Metamucil at lineup and like Megan's goal will be reached. Not the worst thing I've seen fire and police shotgun, but you know, you're then throwing out the antioxidants, the vitamins, the minerals, the water that would have come with that fruit or vegetable. Your biggest bang for your buck for fiber is going to be beans. So like different types of beans, you know, throw them into Mexican nights kind of thing. Soups, salads, that kind of stuff. Nuts and seeds are another good one. Apples, oatmeal is another good one. I also like Smart Pop, Skinny Pop, white cheddar popcorns, which aren't super high in fiber. It's like maybe 2 grams, but it's a better chip alternative. So it's a good, you know, thing with wraps and stuff. Some of those low carb tortillas, like the keto tortillas, are like 20 grams of fiber. Still going to need you to get fiber from other places, but that's another spot you can get it from.
Are there any like energy bars, things that are good for you that provide those kind of, you know, fiber and things like that?
Yeah. So for fiber, I mean, like naturally you're going to get the Kind bars or something like that. Those will have some fiber in them. Quest bars, there are some protein bars that use a fiber syrup. So Quest bars have like 17 grams of fiber. But again, you know, just because if you used a Quest bar and a low carb tortilla, you would get your fiber goals for the day. But I still need you to get it from like that fruit or veggie, like at least 2 fruits and 2 veggies a day if you can. And I know that can be challenging. I love adding spinach to smoothies. That gives you a fruit and a veggie right off the bat. You still keep the fiber because you're blending the whole fruit or the whole veggie. Coleslaw veggies like the pre-shredded cabbage, those go in all my wraps, already cut. $1 at the grocery store. So just trying to find ways to strategize those things into your diet.
And finally, what's an easy way or a system that is good for like pre-planning, planning ahead, and how important is that? Yeah,
like meal planning and stuff like that. That's super important, but the other side of it is that's really frustrating for first responders is, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm finally going to plan this week. They finally planned the freaking week. Their call load is through the freaking roof. They get held over. The kid's throwing up. And next thing you know, it's just like, well, like, why do I even try?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So number one, I think, first of all, having a list of your favorite recipes written down. It sounds ridiculous, but if you have all your favorite recipes written down that are healthier and something you can put into a rotation, then you don't forget. Because like you usually get into like this routine for 3 weeks, you eat the same thing and then you forget what you used to like. So have it written down. But also have backup plans. So first responders always need a backup plan, and that backup plan includes fast food, non-perishable food, and sometimes frozen food. So frozen food, like it's a better bad decision. It's going to be higher in sodium, but if you're going to eat like a frozen cauliflower crust pizza versus Grubhub Five Guys, you know, sometimes people miss the forest for the trees with this thing. So there's a cauliflower crust pizza, which, hear me out, I know cauliflower shouldn't be a pizza crust, but there's one from Costco that all my firefighters were telling me about, and I was like, fine, I will try it. And now I survive off of it. So it's like a Milton's cauliflower crust pizza. It's a little bit thinner crust. It's not doughy, but it's a good day-to-day pizza that gets you some veggies in there.
Yeah.
The Jimmy Dean's like egg white turkey breakfast sandwiches, those are great for grab and go. The egg white frittata things that you can also get at Costco. Having some of those frozen options from either Trader Joe's or Costco can really make a difference, because then you have that better, instead of running to Five Guys or Grubhubbing Five Guys, you have something in your freezer that's a good a better-ish alternative. And then the other thing is, don't sleep on Costco and Sam's Club. They have like these whole areas with wraps. Like they have the Southwest wrap, they have salads, they have soups, that kind of stuff. Like if you have to survive off of that for a week, it's not the end of the world. And someone already made it. It's not that much more expensive. Yeah. It's definitely cheaper than fast food.
Right. It's something my wife and I have been doing for a couple of years now, is we've been doing 2 meals a week with HelloFresh. And so it just gets shipped to us every Monday, and we can kind of go on there and pick and choose what we want, or we can select the healthier options. And we've done that. And we love that because, my wife's a school administrator and she gets home later. And so I'm doing most of the cooking. And so it's just easy. And we always have something there ready for us to go. And it just and we get new ideas for cooking food. And so that's something we've tried.
Yeah. HelloFresh I've liked because it gives you those new ideas. They're healthier. It's the groceries are already done. They landed at your house, that kind of thing. But that's for cookers.
Yeah,
and you'd be surprised, especially the rookies. Oh my God. Like some of these recruits, man, like the 21-year-olds.
They know how to operate the microwave, huh?
I don't even know about that. I mean, like we're talking medium rare chicken. Like it's an absolute travesty.
Wow.
So if you're not a cooker, or like you're like me where you just get yourself so dang busy that like cooking is the last thing you want to do, meal prep companies, things like Mighty Meals, Factor, Territory, all of those are great. In fact, Mighty Meals, we actually called them and we're like, hey, would you be open to giving us a discount for our first responders? And they were like, yeah, here's 25% off. So almost all of the DC area, like Fairfax, Loudoun, DC, if they sign up with their email, they get a 25% off discount, pulling those meals to $9. Those are heat and eat. So for when you're a busy parent and maybe you are in a day work position and you're taking the kids to sports practice, you're not getting home till 9 p.m. There are some alternatives that, while they are expensive up front, when you consider the time and the grocery store bill, sometimes it's just, it's something to try. And it's not subscription based. You just order it and then you never have to order it again. Compared to HelloFresh, where I don't know if you've had weeks where you forgot to cancel it.
Yeah, we've had that, or we've had weeks where it's like, that again? The same thing again. So that's kind of frustrating. And so I try to get on there and try to, pick and choose a little more and give some better options sometimes, but rather than getting the same thing again that we had last week. So that can be kind of frustrating. But it's really improved, some of the things, and it makes it easy for me because,
one less thing to think about.
One less thing to think about, exactly. So anyway, so final question, what are you eating tonight?
Oh God, I haven't. I actually do have some things prepped. I'm going to go do some yard work, and then maybe do that. So I have this Mediterranean orzo that I made this week with like feta, orzo, cucumbers, tomatoes, I forget what else, and then some chicken. So that's probably what I'm going to do. So I do actually write recipes. So I write recipes for Palm Beach Gardens Fire. So PBGFR Wellness, I can send you a link for the show notes. And they're like quick recipes like that. So I try to keep all the recipes like 30 minutes for prep total. And they're just quicker, easier wraps, smoothies, bowls, like that. And that's what I'm probably going to survive off of tonight.
Awesome. So final word for our first responders, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, get in the gray area, make healthy-ish decisions, make better bad decisions. Just because it's not perfect doesn't mean it can't be better than what you were originally going to do, right? So again, if it's a frozen meal versus Five Guys, can you do a smoothie instead of, a donut or something like that? Just make some small decisions. You'd be surprised how much that can impact your general health.
Awesome. Well, Megan, thank you so much for being on the program today. I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Megan, for joining me today on the podcast. I'm really going to work on what I eat and taking more care to think through the things that I eat, to think about the things that I eat, and to just really work on that part of my wellness. So for you, thanks again for listening. Thanks for watching. And remember, you are not alone. And if you need someone to talk to and don't know where you can turn, you can dial 988 for help. Be sure to tune in next week for another interview with an amazing first responder leader. Until then, be well, take care of yourself and those around you, and go out and do something good in the world. I wonder if there's any of that cinnamon roll left. Nah.